What's up, everybody? I decided through mostly boredom. We've got really crappy weather the last several days. Not crappy for people up north, but for Oklahoma, it's cold and slick, and we hadn't been working. I've been busy in the shop the last couple days and busy in the garage. So, I'd done a few videos of heavy haul, just driving kind of stuff, but I decided that I watch a lot of guys that share a lot of experience, expensive learned experience, expensive from investment of literal dollars and expensive from just the school of hard knocks. So while I'm a competent mechanic, I'm damn good at heavy haul. I'm a damn good driver. I'm hell of a hand with a low boy. So I might as well share that. So for several months, I've been thinking about the way to go about it, where to start, kind of so it wasn't just haphazard. I mean, I'm not going to distribute a syllabus for everybody, but it just seems like a good place to teach. And, I've had a lot of questions from different people, so I'm going to start with the stupid basics. And then as time goes on, I hope to get into truck spec, trailer spec, a common spec for most of the 48. Some states give you more than 20 an axle, yada yada. There's some exceptions to that, and California is its own whole ball of wax, which isn't as bad as everybody makes it out to be, short of their politics. But so to start with, the two most important things in heavy haul, before you even turn the damn key on in the truck, before you detach the neck, before you put a load on it, tie it down, I don't care what it is, patience and planning, hands down. When you're doing a big load, odds are you're doing, especially if you're really tall and you got to do route surveys and structure surveys and all that stuff, you're doing that stuff weeks in advance, maybe more. If you're doing the massive dual lane stuff, it might be months of planning. So the more you plan, the better that move will go. Now, short moves, obviously you're not going to have the time to plan, because a lot of low boy stuff is kind of last minute, or a day or two notice if you're lucky. If you're running in your backyard and you know what you can and can't do and what you can get away with from a weight standpoint or a size standpoint, that saves you a lot of time. But if you're new to it, you may not know all that. You may not know that a certain road has a terrible set of railroad tracks, that you'll get hung up like a yard dog if you try to cross them. You may not know that there's a short railroad overpass on Highway 169 just north of Pine Street, stuff like that. So you're constantly learning when you're doing it. You're learning where you physically can and can't go. You're learning what your trailer and your truck can and can't do. And that all helps as you learn to plan. I used to keep notes. Before smartphones, I had notepads and everything. And then when I got smartphones, every time I hauled a load, I would have a note about PC 600 on the beam, what shim I had in the booster, what shim I had between the deck and the wheel area, what size blocks I had under it, where it was on the trailer front to back, what my air gauges said, the whole 9 yards. And I did that for everything I hauled, so that if you ever hauled something you hadn't hauled before, you can go, well, it weighs about as much as a PC 600, or it weighs as much as a 385, or whatever it is. So all those notes and all those previous trips help you plan more efficiently for the next. You can't plan too much. And it helps to have a good helper in the office, whether it's somebody ordering your permits, or an office manager or something like that, or a good permit service. If you're a one-man show, a good permit service is worth their weight in gold. I've done it in-house. I've had permit services do it. But that's part of the planning process too. In some states, It's gotten easier in the last several years because so much of it's online and so much of it's auto issue, and that's a huge help. But if you know you're outside that envelope of routine issue or auto approval, then that's just that much longer. You got to plan and prepare for things. So, planning could even be special tie down equipment. It might be longer chains than you're used to having. It might be if you're hauling heat exchangers or vessels or something that you can't chain directly over. It might be getting conveyor belting or fire hose to put under your chains. It might be having big hooks cut out of plate to hook in the legs to hook your chains to tie stuff down. There's a lot to it. And the more questions you ask, if you have a sheet or a form, when people are calling you with loads, you can take notes. It reminds you to ask certain questions if there's a heavy end or a light end or whatever. So there's a lot to planning, and it's not just yellow iron. It can be vessels, it can be military stuff, it can be power generation. There's all kinds of big, ugly, heavy stuff out there that's got to be hauled. So that's the planning part. The patience comes in. There's a lot of waiting in heavy haul. Even when you cross your T's and dot your I's, you're gonna wait. You might wait on the loading end because the cranes aren't there in time to load you, or the load's not ready, or you're loaded and you ended up miscalculating a weight or miscalculating a dimension or something. You might wait on the unloading end. You might be waiting on the crane to unload you. You might be waiting on the damn boat to come there to load because it's a direct discharge. You can wait on tons of stuff. You got to be patient. When you get impatient with a big load or an expensive load, I've had stuff where I've had $2, $3, $4 million worth of cargo on one piece. When you get impatient is when things get messed up. It'll cost you more than it'll ever make you. Whether you damage a load, you take a wrong turn, you get on a road you're not supposed to be on, then the DOT clips you, or the DOT calls to check, pulls you over and checks you out, and you're feeling in a hurry, and you get smart with them, and instead of just checking your permit, he pulls the scale pads out of his truck and weighs you. Whatever it is, you got to be patient. And that comes even just moving the load. Take your time, get going easy. Every load feels a little different. These days I haul the same 8 or 10 drill rigs all the time. I know how they feel. I know when they're crooked. I know when they're not, whatever it is. I'm used to it. Plus I'm hauling them in an area that I've literally driven for 20 years. So I don't get the surprises that I used to. I'm not going to Georgia empty to load to go to Virginia or the stuff I used to do. But if you're calm and patient and you plan, that rubs off on your pilot cars, that rubs off on your shipper, your receiver, your customer, if it's a third party, the people you deal with in the port or the scale house or whatever. If you've got your ducks in a row, things will go so much better. Even taking a step back, like the registration book in your truck, I used to have a 3-ring binder with sheet protectors in it. Everything was in there, so when you would go in a scale house or you were pulled over on the side of the road, you had your registration, you had your IFTA, you had your inspection for your truck, you had your inspection for your trailer, the registration for your trailer, the permits for the load, if it, the Nevada Amber Light permit, all that crap was in there. It was all labeled alphabetical or however you wanted to put it. So when you flipped it open and it was there and it was perfect, 9 times out of 10, they won't even look at the actual paperwork. The fact that it is organized and that palatable, for lack of a better word, they're not going to bother you. And they probably think, hey, if his book's this good, everything else is probably good too. And that, with your trucks and your tie downs and keeping stuff clean and good rubber on it, that's going to be a whole nother video in this series. I'm going to try to keep them relatively short. Plus I tend to ramble. I have a little bit of that squirrel disease. So honestly, I'm not sure which one is more important, if it's the patience part or the planning part. I'm going to lean towards patience, because even when you plan to the nth degree, something somewhere is going to go sideways. Mother Nature's going to stick it in your rear. The DOT man's going to be in a bad mood because his wife ran off and left him for a truck driver. Whatever it is, you got to be patient. I've literally been cuffed and stuffed moving a big load because they said I crossed a bridge too fast. As hard as it was to not lose my shit, I didn't. And we went to court, and that was that. But it cost me a lot of time and a lot of money, and I didn't do anything wrong. There's probably been a time or two I should have been cuffed and stuffed, but I wasn't. So you just can't be too calm and too deliberate doing this stuff. And that, from as simple as how fast you're hauling the load to, planning your curfews. If you got to go through multiple states or multiple cities that have curfews, you need to sit down the night before. You might want to blow and go at 5:30 in the morning when the sun comes up, but that might put you curfew somewhere, and you sit on the side of the road for 2 hours, if there's even a place to sit on the side of the road. If you're 10 wide, yeah, you could probably sit on the shoulder. If you're 16 wide, 18 wide, no, you're not sitting on the shoulder. You may know of a place to park, and that's fine. You got to plan your fuel stops. You got to plan where you're going to park each night, especially with a big trailer. We used to do a bunch of loads to Georgia, and we had that route down to a science because we had the benefit of doing it so many times. And it's weird, but we would leave here and we'd barely get into Arkansas. That's where we'd park. We'd leave bright and early, and we could run our asses off because we had to get to the other side of Nashville. And then we'd go into Georgia the rest of the way. We did that because we knew the Georgia scales were closed on Saturdays. And so we didn't really want to find out what we weighed because it wouldn't have been good. So, to circle back around, patience, planning. If you're an impulsive person, or you have a hot temper, or you get frazzled really easy, it's going to make this a little more challenging for you. It's not impossible. I think I'm probably more patient and calm because of all the years I moved stuff, because you'd get geared up to go and you may end up sitting for days waiting on a load, whether you were in the port of Houston or snowed in Laramie, Wyoming, or waiting on a permit in Virginia. I sat there for like 10 effing days one time waiting on a permit. I sat in Georgia waiting to get in, or South Carolina waiting to get in North Carolina one time, like 10 days on a permit. And we had done everything we possibly could. It's just that some states are slow, and some just don't give a flying you know what. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so patience, planning. I don't know what the next video will be. I got to think about it. Anybody can put a camera in the truck and drive around. I know I've done that. I'm astonished at how many people moving big iron do it because somebody showed them how to do it, and don't necessarily understand what they're doing or why they're doing it. And I mean, like shimming trailers, load and load offset, understanding center of gravity of your empty truck and trailer versus the center of gravity of your load, to actually kind of have an idea of what your loaded weights are going to be when you're loaded. Just stuff like that. Some of that's pretty simple. I went to a big heavy haul seminar about 10 years ago that was more platform trailer, heavy lift, European style stuff. And some of the things I learned in there, it was awesome. I'd never thought about it like that, but it really helped me understand some of the dynamic loading of my equipment, and it made me better at setting the load on the trailer and being right on my weight, or being close to what I thought I was going to be. So anyway, if you guys have any questions or feedback, just leave a message. I'll try to do, if there's a certain video somebody wants to do or a request or whatever related to heavy haul, I'm going to try to stick to that till I get through this process. It's probably going to take a while. I'm going to have to do some brainstorming because, like I said, I want to get into truck spec, trailer spec, from a 6 or 7 axle rig all the way up to a 13. I know a little bit about 19s. I never pulled one or owned one. I've worked around some dual lanes. I've done some consulting and route surveys and shit like that for them. So I understand the concept. We can even kick the can around platform trailers and stability triangles and all that crap if somebody wants to. So anyway, I want to try to keep these videos reasonably short. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully the main thing I want to take you guys to take out of this is the concept. You know, each video, if you go, I never thought about patience, I never thought about planning that far ahead, and it can starts this thought process, then that's my goal. I don't want to lay it out where you got to follow my step-by-step tutorial, because I don't know what you're doing. You know, we're all different. We all haul different shit. We live in different states. Hell, you might live in a different country. I'd love to go to Australia. I think that shit's badass. But, so I'm going to call this one good. Hope everybody's healthy. Not drinking too much of the Kool-Aid. It's supposed to get colder than hell and snow here, which is very uncommon for Oklahoma. So anyway, hope everybody's doing good. Take care.